You ever get that feeling that something's off before it even starts? Like your gut knows a split second before your brain catches up? That's how I felt the night this all started. Name's Mike Rawlins. I've been with the sheriff's department in a small rural county in northern Pennsylvania for going on 15 years now. Quiet area. Woods, farms, a few old mining towns bleeding out more people than they bring in. We mostly deal with bar fights, welfare checks, and the occasional meth lab tucked into a trailer or hunting shack. Real Mayberry with an oxy problem kind of place. But that night was different from the jump. It was early October. The kind of cold that starts to bite, where your breath fogs in the air even though the leaves haven't fully dropped yet. I was on night patrol, solo shift, nothing unusual. My call sign was Echo 3, and my usual route included Route 17, which winds through about 20 miles of backwoods with nothing but darkness on either side. About an hour into the shift, dispatch chirped in with something strange. Echo 3, we got a 10 to 27 coming from just past mile marker 112. Caller didn't leave much, just kept saying there's a man standing in the middle of the road. No vehicle, no ID, not moving. I keyed the mic. Copy that, Central. I'm about 10 out. Heading there now. No big deal, I thought. Maybe someone broke down and wandered off from their car. Maybe some drunk lost in the woods. Happens. I clicked off the radio, and as I took that long, dark curve leading toward 112, I swear to God, I felt something shift in the air. The wind died. The trees, usually creaking and sighing this time of year, were dead still. Not a sound. Not even bugs. And then I saw him. One guy. Right in the center of the two-lane road. Not moving. Facing me. I slowed the cruiser, keeping my spotlight off for now. Just low beams slicing through the dark. As I got closer, I could see he was wearing dark clothes, maybe a hoodie, and his face. It was hard to make out. Almost like he had something pulled up over it. But here's the thing that got me. He didn't flinch. Didn't move an inch as I rolled up. I stopped maybe 30 feet back, popped the spotlight on, and stepped out with my hand resting on my holster, not drawn, but ready. Evening, sir. Everything all right? No response. You hurt? Need assistance? Still nothing. I moved closer slowly, trying to make out his features. The hoodie was drawn tight, but something about the way he stood, it was wrong. Like his shoulders were angled just a little off, like he was hunched, but in a way that didn't fit the rest of his body. I could feel the hairs rise on my arms under my uniform. Sir, I need you to respond. Then, finally, he moved. Not toward me. Not away. He just turned. He pivoted to his right and walked straight into the woods. Not ran. Not stumbled. Just turned and walked off the road like the forest was calling him home. I should have called it in. I should have stayed in the car. Hell, I should have just watched him vanish into the trees and kept driving. But I didn't. I followed him in. And that's where everything started to go wrong. I stepped off the asphalt and into the trees, every instinct in me screaming to stop. But you learn to mute that voice on the job. Fear's a luxury you can't afford when people's lives are in your hands. That's what I told myself anyway. I radioed in. Central, this is Echo 3. Subject left the roadway on foot at marker 112. I'm following on foot. Will advise. Silence for a beat. Then a hiss of static. Echo 3, say again? You're cutting out. Weird. Radio's normally fine out here. I repeated myself, but this time, there was nothing. Just dead air. I clicked it off and kept going. The flashlight beam bounced ahead of me, lighting up spindly trees and brush, all tangled like grasping hands. Pine needles crunched under my boots. I followed the footprints, clear enough in the damp earth, but the man himself was gone. Just gone. Like he'd stepped between the folds of the world and vanished. But the deeper I went, the more I realized something was wrong with the woods themselves. It took me a minute to place it. No birds. No bugs. No rustling leaves. It was dead quiet. I mean hospital at 3 a.m. quiet. Even the kind of silence you get in the woods at night has a hum to it, a rhythm. But this was like the whole forest was holding its breath. Then I heard it. Not far ahead. Breathing. Not labored. Not panicked. Controlled. Deep, slow inhalations, like someone trying to center themselves. Or prepare. I swung the beam in the direction of the sound. Nothing. I called out again. Sir, you need to stop where you are. You're in violation of... Snap. A branch behind me. I turned fast, weapon drawn this time. My light flared across trees and shadows, but nothing moved. Then I heard it again, that breathing, now to my left. I whipped around, scanning. Still nothing. That's when the realization sank in, cold and heavy in my gut. The breathing wasn't moving around me. It was circling me. I don't mean someone running from tree to tree. I mean the sound itself, the location of it, was shifting, like the forest was throwing the noise, distorting it. 1 second in front of me, next second over my shoulder. My training kicked in. I backed up slowly, flashlight high, weapon low, trying to reorient. I hadn't gone more than a couple 100 feet in. I could retrace my steps in. That's when I saw it. Carved into a tree trunk about eye level, freshly etched. Echo 3. Not spray painted. Carved. Deep. Like someone had gouged it in with a hunting knife. And beneath it, a date. October 3rd. That was today. My breath caught in my throat. I spun around, searching for movement, for any hint of where the man had gone. But there was nothing. Just dark trees and silence. And then, over the radio, finally, a voice crackled through. But it wasn't dispatch. Not even close. Shouldn't have followed him, Mike. The voice was low. Hoarse. Like it had been spoken through a throat thick with ash. And it knew my name. I froze. Who is this? I barked into the radio. Identify yourself now. Silence. Then softly. We all make our choices. Click. Dead air. I don't remember deciding to run, but suddenly I was crashing back through the trees, branches whipping my face, my heart pounding like it was trying to rip through my ribs. I burst out of the woods, gasping, back onto Route 17, and my cruiser was still there, idling like nothing had happened. I slammed the door, locked it, and sat in stunned silence for a full minute before grabbing the mic. Central, this is Echo 3. I lost visual on the subject. No further contact. Returning to patrol. This time, dispatch came through clear as day. 10-4, Echo 3. You okay out there? I hesitated. Yeah, I lied. Just fine. But I wasn't. And I wouldn't be, not after what I found the next night. I told myself not to think too hard about what happened. Maybe I was tired. Maybe it was the cold, the isolation, a trick of the trees. Your mind can do funny things when you're out there alone too long. That's what I told myself all the next day. But I didn't sleep. Every time I shut my eyes, I'd hear that breathing again. And that voice over the radio, raspy, broken, intimate. Like it had been right beside me in the dark. By the time night fell, I felt strung out. Nerves raw. I considered calling in, faking an illness. But I couldn't. Not because of pride or duty, though I told myself that, but because a part of me needed to go back out. I needed to prove to myself that I hadn't lost it. That's the first rule they don't put in any manual. When the job starts to eat at you, you double down. You fake calm until it becomes real. So at 7:03 p.m., I was back in the cruiser. Same call sign. Echo 3. Same shift. Same damn route. Only this time, I skipped 112. I drove past that mile marker like it was radioactive. Didn't even glance toward the trees. Just kept my eyes on the yellow lines and told myself, stick to the job. No hero shit. For the first couple hours, things were quiet. I even started to relax a little. Routine has a way of numbing you. Helps you forget. But around 11:40 p.m., just as I was pulling off the main road to circle a side street that runs behind a line of abandoned homes, dispatch came on. Echo 3, we got another report out near Route 17. Southbound this time. Caller says someone's walking the edge of the road, matches the same description as last night's, dark hoodie, face obscured. No vehicle in sight. My stomach dropped. Where exactly? I asked, trying to keep my voice flat. Just past the 108 marker. About 4 miles south of where you had that encounter. 4 miles. Same stretch of highway. Same man. I sat in the dark for a full minute before replying. Copy. En route. But this time, I promised myself something. No chasing shadows. No woods. Just eyes on the subject and a clean call-in. If he ran? Fine. Let the woods have him. As I approached 108, my headlights hit the same eerie stillness I remembered. The wind died again. The forest pressed in tight, heavy, like it was listening. And there he was. Walking the shoulder this time, just ahead. Same posture. Same pace. Slow. Like gravity didn't quite apply to him. He didn't react to the cruiser pulling up behind him. I switched on the spotlight and grabbed the mic. Central, I have visual on the subject. Approaching on foot now. Copy that, Echo 3. Keep us updated. I stepped out, door open behind me, cruiser's lights bathing the pavement in red and blue. My hand hovered near my belt, but this time I left the weapon holstered. Sir? I called, voice steady. I'm asking you one more time to stop and identify yourself. He did. But not by talking. He turned. And pulled down his hood. What I saw, it still doesn't make sense. His face looked normal, mostly. Too normal. Like a mannequin trying to imitate a human expression. Skin too smooth. Eyes too wide. Mouth slightly parted like he was mid-sentence. But nothing came out. No emotion. No recognition. No fear. Just vacancy. Then he raised one hand and pointed, not at me, but past me. I turned. Behind me, on the opposite side of the road, was a small patch of gravel turnout. Nothing special. Except, I could have sworn there was something there now. A dark shape. Low to the ground. I walked toward it slowly, not taking my eyes off the shadows until my flashlight lit it up. It was a radio. One of ours. Old model. The kind we phased out at least 5 years ago. And it was on. Just humming quietly. Like it had been waiting. I picked it up, turned it in my hand. It was scratched to hell, but still functional. The metal label was almost worn smooth, but I could still make out the engraved tag on the back. Echo 3. My call sign. My call sign. I didn't even hear him walk away. When I turned around, the man was gone again, vanished into the dark like he'd never been there at all. Only the radio remained. And it was starting to speak. At first, I thought it was just static. The kind of soft hiss you hear when a radio is picking up background frequencies, like wind blowing through an open mic. I held it close to my ear, watching the trees as if he might step back out any second. Then the static started to change. It began pulsing, slow and deliberate, almost like breathing. Just like in the woods. That same rhythm, inhale, exhale, long and steady. And behind it, like a whisper carried on wine through a graveyard, I could hear voices. Faint. Fractured. Like they were buried just below the static. I turned up the volume. The breathing stopped. The voices grew clearer. He walks in circles. He hears us now. You shouldn't have picked it up. And then, all at once, they stopped. Dead silence. I looked back toward the road, half expecting him to be standing there, watching. But the shoulder was empty. Just a cold wind now, pushing through the trees like the woods had exhaled. I got back in the cruiser with the old radio in my lap, unsure what to do with it. Protocol said I should log it as found property, take it back to the station. But some part of me didn't want to. It felt wrong to bring it anywhere near other people. So I did something I can't explain even now. I popped the trunk and locked the damn thing inside. And I kept driving. But something about that moment, that choice, changed the night. I didn't feel alone in the cruiser anymore. Not exactly watched, but accompanied. Like someone had slid into the back seat and wasn't saying anything. Just being there. I kept checking the mirror. Nothing. No calls came in for a while. No traffic. Just me and the road and the sound of tires humming against the asphalt. Until 2:14 a.m. That's when my regular radio, the new one mounted in the cruiser, lit up again. But not with dispatch. Echo 3. Echo 3, come in. The voice wasn't anyone I recognized. But it sounded like me. I froze, hand over the mic, staring at the screen. It shouldn't have even been possible. Nobody could transmit like that. Not with my exact call sign. And definitely not with my damn voice. I didn't respond. I just listened. You left something behind, the voice said. Then the feed cut off. I reached for the mic anyway, instincts overriding the dread clawing at my spine. Who the hell is this? Identify yourself. Silence. Then, faint, distant, I heard a soft click from the back of the cruiser. From the trunk. Like the latch had just moved. I pulled over hard, adrenaline flooding my limbs. I stepped out with my flashlight and drew my weapon for the second time that night, hands shaking now despite years of steady nerves. I circled to the rear of the car, heart hammering. The trunk was still shut. But not locked. The latch had popped. I reached out, fingers stiff with cold and fear, and lifted the trunk. The radio was sitting right where I left it. Only now, the display was lit up. Flickering. And on the screen, where you'd normally see the frequency, it read, "Where is Echo 1? That name hit me like a punch to the chest. Echo 1. That was my old partner's call sign. Deputy Jim Kessler. He'd gone missing 2 years earlier. Vanished during a storm while responding to a welfare check. They never found him. Not a trace. Just his cruiser, driver's side door open, lights still flashing, and his radio, cracked and dead, lying in the mud next to his hat. No body. No footprints. No signs of struggle. I stared at that screen, my breath steaming in the cold air, and I swear for just a second, I heard his voice on that old radio. Mike, it's cold out here. Then the light blinked off. And everything went dark again. You never really get over losing someone in the field. Even if it's not your fault. Even if the case goes cold and the department shrugs and moves on, you don't. You carry it. You replay every last second before they vanished. Every conversation. Every missed sign. You wonder what might have gone different if you were the one who answered that call instead. That's what I've done with Kessler for 2 years. Jim and I weren't just shift partners, we were friends. The kind who pulled double shifts without complaint, swapped coffee and war stories, covered each other's asses when things got hairy. He was sharp. Calm. One of the good ones. He was the last guy who should have disappeared without a trace. And yet, the official story? He responded to a 911 hang-up from an address up in the hills, a rundown farmhouse on a road that barely showed up on GPS. It was raining hard that night. Real biblical stuff. Dispatch lost contact with him around 2:40 a.m. By the time they found his cruiser, it was empty. No damage. Engine still running. His flashlight was found 10 feet into the woods. Turned off. We searched for days. Dogs. Drones. Ground teams. Not a single piece of clothing. Not a footprint. Not even disturbed soil. Just like he walked into the trees and evaporated. I've never let that go. So when I saw his call sign on that old radio, "Where is Echo 1?" something inside me cracked. This wasn't a prank. It wasn't a stress hallucination. Something out here remembered him. And it was asking me. I drove straight back to the station, didn't say a word to dispatch. Just locked the old radio in a file cabinet in evidence lockup and wrote the bare minimum on the found property form. Didn't even put my name. I knew what I had to do next, even though every part of me wanted to ignore it. I had to go back to that farmhouse. The one from Jim's last call. I pulled the archived dispatch logs that morning, digging through old reports until I found it. The address was still listed. 312 Delman Ridge Road. Unincorporated land. No active residents. No owner on file anymore. Just a structure out there, deep in the pines, where no one was supposed to live. That night, I didn't take a cruiser. I used my own truck. Didn't log the trip. Didn't tell anyone. And as I drove those winding back roads, rain tapping soft against the windshield like fingers drumming a warning, I felt that same heaviness again. The same airless silence from the woods. The same sense that the trees were leaning just a little too close. When I pulled up to the place, I nearly didn't recognize it. The farmhouse was half collapsed. Rotten. Like it hadn't been touched in decades, let alone just a couple years. Porch was sagging. One shutter hung loose. The windows were dark. Everything about it screamed, "You don't belong here." But I got out anyway. I climbed the creaking porch steps, flashlight in one hand, the other resting on my concealed weapon. The front door hung slightly ajar. Not broken, just waiting. Inside, the smell hit me first. Not rot. Not mildew. It smelled like old radio equipment. Like warm dust and ozone. Like the inside of a broadcast station, something metallic and almost electrical in the air. And beneath that, something else. A sharp, organic smell. Like blood that had dried, been scrubbed, and dried again. I moved slowly through the front room, which was empty aside from some broken furniture and water-stained wallpaper. My boots creaked on warped floorboards. The walls seemed too narrow. The corners too dark. Then I found the radio. It was sitting on a table in the back of the house. Old, military grade, something you'd expect to find in a Cold War bunker, not a rotting farmhouse in the woods. Big dials. Metal casing. No power cord. And it was on. The display was cracked and dim, but lit. And the frequency read. Echo 1. Just that. I reached out, slowly, and touched the mic. It was ice cold. Then the speaker crackled, and I heard him. Jim. Mike. I can't see the sky. My blood ran cold. They don't let us sleep here. They whisper, all the time. They sound like us, but they're not us. Don't follow them, Mike. Don't. The message cut off. Silence. Then, a different voice came through. Low. Rough. Familiar. You brought the wrong radio. Click. The light on the device blinked out. And in the next room, a floorboard creaked, not from me. Someone else was in the house. I froze. The creak came again. Slow. Heavy. One footstep, maybe two. Directly beyond the cracked door to my left. I didn't call out. Didn't announce myself. Something told me that whoever was in the house already knew I was there. And whatever they were doing, they weren't in the mood for conversation. I stepped back from the dead radio and drew my sidearm. My flashlight beam cut across the warped hallway as I moved toward the door. Every muscle in my body felt tight enough to snap. I'd cleared dozens of buildings in my career, but this was different. The air was wrong. The walls themselves felt like they were listening. I nudged the door open with my foot, light and weapon raised. It was a bedroom. Mostly empty, dust, a moldy mattress, broken dresser tipped on its side. But that wasn't what stopped me cold. It was the walls. They were covered in writing. Thousands of names. Carved in with something sharp. Jagged letters, crammed into every inch of space. Some shallow, others deep enough to expose the wood beneath the drywall. And right in the middle of the back wall, under a cracked window. Echo 1, James Kessler. Fresh. Below that, carved more recently, ragged, like it had been done in a hurry. Echo 3, Mike Rawlins. That's when the stench hit me. Coppery. Wet. Rot. I spun around, light catching on something in the corner. It was a uniform. Deputy khakis. Torn. Stained dark. Folded neatly on a chair, as if someone had undressed themselves and left it there on purpose. On top of the pile, resting with deliberate care, was a badge. Kessler's badge. I stepped closer, swallowing bile. I hadn't seen it since the day he went missing. The metal was dulled, but the number was still clear. Number 4387. Then, from behind me, in the hallway, a voice. Mike! I turned so fast I nearly lost my footing. The hallway was empty. But the flashlight flickered. Just for a second. And in that second, I saw him. Not Jim. Not the hooded figure. Someone else. Just a silhouette, standing at the end of the hallway. Shoulders hunched. Arms long. Face entirely blank. Like it was smeared, like someone had tried to erase it from reality, but it kept bleeding through. And then he was gone. Just like that. I backed into the bedroom, breathing hard, weapon still up. I didn't know what the hell I was looking at anymore. Not ghosts. Not hallucinations. This was something else. Something that watched. Something that knew. That's when the radio behind me crackled again, the one I thought was dead. I turned. It lit up, just for a second. And the voice that came through wasn't Jim. It was mine. Echo 3. You've entered the wrong perimeter. Return to vehicle. They're awake now. Click. That was enough. I grabbed Kessler's badge and bolted out of the room, back through the house, slamming the front door open so hard the hinges screamed. The air outside felt like stepping out of a sealed tomb, fresh, cold, sharp. I jumped into my truck and floored it, gravel spitting up behind me. Didn't stop driving until I hit the first gas station with light. Didn't say a word to anyone. Didn't sleep. Just sat there in the cab of my truck, badge in one hand, gun in the other, heart refusing to slow down. Because here's the thing that haunted me more than anything else that night. I looked at that carved wall. I saw all those names. Most of them meant nothing to me. But one of them? I recognized. It was my father's. He'd died in this county, 20 years earlier. Retired cop. Stroke, they said. Only now. I wasn't so sure. I didn't go home that morning. I parked in the lot behind the old archives building attached to the county courthouse. Barely more than a converted record shed with sagging shelves and enough mold to give OSHA a stroke. Most of the department doesn't even know it's there. But I'd been a deputy long enough to remember the pre-digital days. That meant microfilm. Paper reports. Actual filing cabinets. And I needed answers that the computers wouldn't give me. The badge, Jim's badge, sat heavy in my coat pocket as I unlocked the rusted door and stepped into the cold, dust-slick air of the archives. I knew what I was looking for now. Names. Missing officers. Odd calls. Any incident from the last, say, 30 years that smelled like the thing I'd just seen. I didn't have to look long. Because there was a pattern. It was buried. Scattered. Reported as heart attacks, gun accidents, even drownings. But when I filtered the cases by badge numbers, specifically echo units, things started to come into focus. 10 echo call signs retired in the last 3 decades. 9 of them were missing persons. Only one had a closed file. That one was my father. Thomas Rawlins. Echo 2. Died in 2005, age 62. Retired cop. Known around the county as a no-nonsense guy. The kind of man who sharpened his boots before his mind. On paper, his death was clean. Natural. Stroke while fishing out at Lake Melrose. But in the folder marked with his name, tucked in the back, was a handwritten note from an old field sergeant, now long gone. Said he heard voices on the old band again. Told him not to go back to 312. Swore something was waiting in the trees. Wouldn't let it go. Took his badge out there the night before he died. Never found it. And attached, stapled in the corner like an afterthought? A photo. Of him. Standing outside the same damn farmhouse I'd just escaped from. Same porch. Same crooked shutter. Same heavy air. And behind him, in the photo's blurred shadow, a tall, dark figure watching from the treeline. Barely visible. You'd miss it if you weren't looking for it. But I was. And it matched what I saw in the hallway. No face. Too tall. Hunched like the spine didn't fit inside the skin. There was no official mention of that photo in the file. I sat there for a long time, that stale air pressing in, while everything I'd known about this job twisted in on itself. 3 generations. Same call sign. Same stretch of road. Same house. Same thing. I don't know if the department ever knew. Or if someone higher up did and just buried it. Maybe that's what the Echo program really was, a rotation, so no one deputy stayed too long on that route. So no one followed too deep. But I did. And now? I had a badge in my pocket from a man who should have been dead, a voice on a dead radio that knew my name, and a shadow out there wearing the shape of people it shouldn't. This wasn't a haunting. It was a trap. A long one. Old. And I had walked right into it. I didn't go on shift that night. Didn't check in with dispatch. Didn't answer my phone. I knew I'd be marked absent by morning, maybe flagged for a welfare check if I really pushed it. But none of that mattered now. Because I wasn't a cop anymore, not in any way that made sense. I was part of something else. Something older. Something that didn't care about policies or partners or pensions. That night, I sat in my living room with every light off, the windows closed, the badge on the table in front of me, and the old radio I'd taken from the farmhouse wired into a car battery. Yeah. I know how that sounds. But I had to know. If it still worked. If Jim was still out there. If I could talk to him, or whatever was left of him. The moment I finished the rig, the radio crackled to life like it had just been waiting. No tuning. No delay. The frequency read. Echo band open. Then the voices started. Whispers, tumbling over each other. Male, female, old, young. Some sounded terrified. Others calm. But they were all broken. Like they were being spoken through people, not by them. And buried beneath all of it? One voice. Jim's. Clear. They wear us. Like clothes. Skin and memory. That's all we are to them. Echoes. I leaned in close. Jim, it's Mike. Where are you? What do you mean they wear us? We went in too far. We followed too long. Every echo gets a call. If you answer it, they learn you. They study your shape. They copy the sound of your voice. And once they know your name, static swallowed the rest. When it cleared, a new voice cut in. Not Jim. Mine. But wrong. Slow. Deliberate. As if someone were learning how to speak with my mouth. Mike Rawlins. Echo 3. Approaching final shift. I reeled back from the radio, bow rising in my throat. The voice repeated the phrase again, slightly smoother this time. Less stilted. More human. Echo 3. Approaching final shift. They weren't just listening. They were learning. They had the voice. The name. The badge. All the pieces. And then I remembered something from the farmhouse. Something I hadn't let myself focus on in the moment. That pile of clothes. Jim's badge was there. His shirt. His name tag. But not his belt. Not his radio. They had it. They'd had it since the night he vanished. And now they had mine. I sprinted to my truck, tore the keys from the hook, and peeled down the highway toward the station. If they had my radio, the original, I didn't know what they could do with it. But I was starting to get the sense that having someone's voice, their name, their badge, that was all they needed. And I wasn't about to let them finish the job. I got to the station around 1 a.m. Place was quiet, eerily so. Just a few cruisers parked out front, lights off. Inside, the fluorescents buzzed low, casting everything in that sickly pale green glow that makes even familiar things feel off. I didn't see anyone, not at the front desk, not in the break room. That wasn't right. There's always someone on duty. But that night? The building felt like it had been emptied on purpose. Like it knew I was coming. I made a straight line for the evidence room. No keys, just the override I'd learned after a decade on the force. Punched it in, door clicked, and there it was on the shelf where I left it. The old radio. Still scratched. Still flickering. And beside it? My active patrol radio. The one from my cruiser. The one I never turned in. I stared at it, heart thudding hard enough to make me dizzy. Someone had taken it. Which meant they'd been in my truck. Or my home. Or somewhere close enough to slip in and out without being seen. I stepped in, grabbed both radios, and just as I turned to leave, the overhead PA system clicked on. We don't use it often. Usually just for weather alerts or paging someone. But this time, the voice that came through wasn't dispatch. It was me. Echo 3, return to Route 17. Last known position. Mile marker 112. Subject waiting for extraction. Then silence. I stood there for a second, shaking, the weight of both radios pulling at my hands. My voice had been calm. Professional. Like nothing was wrong. Like I was still on shift. Still just doing the job. But it wasn't me. And I knew what this meant. This was the last part of the pattern. Every Echo unit who'd vanished, they all went missing after a call came in from themselves. It wasn't an ambush. It was a ritual. They had to be invited back. Had to say yes. Had to return. And once they did, that was it. No backup. No search. Just disappearance, written off in paperwork and policy. So I left the station, both radios in a duffel bag, and instead of heading back to my place, I drove to a motel just outside county lines. Paid in cash. Took a room on the second floor. No windows facing the road. No listing under my name. I sat there for hours, gun on the nightstand, bag on the floor. And around 3:12 a.m., right on cue, the old radio lit up again. But this time, it didn't just whisper. It screamed. Every speaker in the room, including the damn TV, erupted with static and overlapping voices, some mine, some Jim's, some I didn't recognize at all. All saying the same thing in different tones, different versions. Echo 3, return to route. Return to us, Mike. You left your post. You're out of time. Then, behind it all, a voice deeper than the others. Like it came from beneath the floorboards of the world. Slow. Hungry. We can't wear you, until you let go. The radios blew out, literally sparked and cracked, screens shattered. My ears rang. Lights in the motel room flickered and popped. And in the reflection of the darkened TV screen, for a brief, flickering second, I saw a figure standing behind me. My shape. My uniform. My face. But its mouth was open wider than humanly possible. Like it was learning how to smile. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't even sit down. Just stood in the corner of that room, lights dead, staring at the blown-out radios and waiting for something, anything, to knock, creep, breathe behind the walls. But nothing came. That's how they work. Not with force. Not at first. They wait for you to come back. And most do. Echo units, we're stubborn like that. By 6 a.m., I knew what I had to do. There's only one way to break a pattern this old, this intentional. You don't run from it. You walk straight into the fire, but your way. Not theirs. I drove out past the county line to a salvage yard I knew, paid the guy under the table to borrow a gas axe and a scrap press for an hour. No questions asked? Took the batch. My radios. Even the one from Jim. Crushed them. Melted what was left. Tossed the slag into a drum and poured quickcrete over it. Buried the whole thing under a rusted-out school bus that hadn't moved in 20 years. Symbolic? Maybe. But in this job, symbols matter. Badges. Uniforms. Radios. Names. They can't wear what doesn't exist anymore. When I got back into my truck, I didn't drive to the station. I didn't check in. I didn't turn on a single device. I just drove. Windows down. No destination. And somewhere along Route 17, past marker 112, I pulled over. Same stretch of blacktop. Same shoulder. Same breathless trees. Only this time, I wasn't Echo 3 anymore. I got out of the truck and walked the line of the road until I found it. A spot just off the shoulder where the grass was flattened, faint, old, but unmistakable. Like someone had stood there. For a long, long time. Maybe watching. Maybe waiting. I lit a flare, stuck it in the dirt. Not to summon anything. But to say one final thing. I see you. But you don't get to keep me. I don't know how long I stood there before the sun broke over the hills. It was quiet. Just wind. Just trees. And for the first time in weeks, nothing whispered my name. I turned around, walked back to the truck, and left the road behind. I handed in my resignation a week later. Moved south. Took a maintenance job at a marina where the worst thing I deal with is seagulls tearing open the bait bins. People ask me if I miss the badge. And sometimes, when I hear a radio squawk somewhere in the distance, part of me almost does. But then I remember that last transmission, that voice that wore my voice like a stolen coat, and I know I made the right choice. Because once they know your name, your call sign, your pattern, they don't stop calling. Unless you stop answering. And that, my friend, was my last shift. Echo 3 signed off.